Hey Year 5, welcome to Friday's Maths. Today we're looking at metric units, all metric units, particularly ones of measurement. But let's get this date and title in your book, please. Pause the video here and put those into your book for today. So today's total recall, we're going to look at some work from this week, looking at conversion from millilitres to litres. I've got another true or false statement with a greater than symbol. And then we're going to look at multiplication and division from our previous half term. So please pause the video here and answer those three questions in your book now. Okay, here come our answers. So the first one, that was false because 2 litres is equal to 2,000 millilitres. 1 litre is 1,000 millilitres. So 2 litres is 2,000 millilitres. That means then that this symbol is incorrect because 2 litres is a much greater amount. 2,000 millilitres is a much greater amount than 205 millilitres. So it would need to be the other way around. Last half terms there, we're looking at multiplication here. We've got a 3-digit number multiplied by a 2-digit number. So the first thing to do would be to multiply 474 by 3. Then you'd be multiplying 474 by 40 with the addition of the 0. Add those together, 20,382. And the last one, in a bust-up division, 138 divided by 6 is 23. So we're going to look at metric measurements today. Did you know that we call meters, litres and similar measurements metric measurements? This is the metric system. So in there are centimetres, metres, millimetres for units of length. We've got litres and millilitres for units of volume. We've got grams and kilograms for units of mass. And then we can also put in things like Celsius, degrees Celsius. That's a metric unit of temperature. Even some of the units, the scientific units like watts and kilowatts, these work in a metric system. Those are units of electrical power. Volts and other scientific units. Anything that subscribes to a decimal system can be thought of as a metric measurement. Now, a decimal means that the units change at multiples of 10. So, for example, litres. A litre is made up of 1,000 millilitres, and 1,000 is a multiple of 10. We could also use, we don't use it very often, but we can use to measure centilitre. A centilitre is 100 millilitres, and 100 is a multiple of 10. Centimetres and millimetres, the relationship between that, 10 millimetres makes up 1 centimetre, so that makes it a decimal equivalent, a metric measurement. But it wasn't always like this. This isn't the only system that we use. In the UK, we traditionally used what we call imperial measurements. These are called imperial because they were used across the British Empire. We don't have a British Empire anymore. It's something that we look at as being part of our history rather than part of our current makeup of the UK. The British Empire associated kind of with Queen Victoria. At that time, lots of other countries in the world kind of belonged to Britain, belonged to the UK, and were run by Britain. And the word imperial means of the empire. So we had imperial measures. Now these don't use a decimal system. Now, do you recognise any of these? Inches, miles, gallons, ounces, pints, pounds? Well, these are all imperial measures, and a few of them we kind of use today. So particularly miles, we see that a lot, don't we, on road signs. Pints in pubs and restaurants. Drinks are served in measures of pints, half a pint of Coke or beer or whatever it is. Inches, we sometimes see things measured in inches, and people will often give their height in feet and inches. You might say, oh, I'm 5'11", meaning I'm 5 feet and 11 inches tall. So these are still used now and again. Now, what means they're not metric, they're not for the metric system, they don't change measurements at multiples of 10. For example, there isn't 10 inches in a foot, there's 12 inches in a foot. So an inch becomes a foot when it crosses over to 12. There isn't 10 pounds in a stone, there's 14 pounds in a stone. It's a difficult system to use, and personally I'm quite glad we use a lot of metric measurements here now because I find them a lot easier. But The change happened mainly in around the 1970s and 80s. The UK changed a lot of its measuring system over from imperial to the decimal metric system. Now, some people were not happy about this. I know we're going down a bit of a history route here, but I just think before we crack on with our maths, let's have a little look at a video which gives some interviews from people from, I think it's from 1979, about their thoughts on the change from imperial to metric.
Well, I travel abroad a lot. Well, when we go abroad, you don't get as much mileage to it. And therefore, you're going to use more petrol. And then they say, oh, so many miles, right? Well, you're not doing that. You're not going to do the mileage, what they say you're going to do. Because the kilometres are not the same as the mileage. It's shorter.
It's the Treaty of Rome, as my husband would say. Everything's been decimalised. Horrible, I can't bear it.
Well, it's in all our national heritage, haven't we?
Like what?
Well, like, you know, the money's all changed, the decimalisation, all the weights being changed, measurements and everything. And I think, you know, we're an island on our own, you know, and let's face it, we once ruled the world, didn't we? You know? And now we're just being part of a community. I don't agree with it at all.
It's much better, much easier.
Ah,
The kilometers
what's the
instead
kilometre?
of miles. It goes in tens and thousands. 1,000 meters is 1 kilometer, yes?
Do you know what a kilometre is?
No.
80 kilometres, 50 miles an hour.
Rubbish.
What rubbish? What are you talking rubbish?
Rubbish. That's what it is.
I
Why
see.
don't they leave everything alone? With the kilometres and the so off, for God's sake.
But kilometres are nice and round. I mean,
Oh, sure.
Yes. She don't know.
I don't want to know either.
It doesn't much matter to me. I only go 4 miles an hour and I don't really worry very much about either.
I've got a little old saying, it may not be any beneficial to people like you. They had a little bloke with a moustache like that. His name was Chamberlain. He was the Prime Minister. So now we're going to fight a war to make it a better land to live in. That was for me. I was 19 years of age. Did 10 years in the war. Come back here, now everybody wants to change the way that I went and fought for. It ain't right. I want it as it is now. What I really sacrificed my life for.
So there's quite a wide range of views in that video, wasn't there? Some people very, very strongly against, furious at the prospect of a change in their measurements. So some people didn't really seem to care very much. Some a little bit confused, I think, and seemed to think it was going to cause problems for them that weren't necessarily the case. It might be worth next time you speak to your grandparents. We probably need to be a grandparents' generation. Next time you speak to them on Zoom or whatever, FaceTime, ask them. Say you were learning about this in your maths and say, do you remember that? Granny, Grandpa, Nana? What was it like? Did you care about it? Did it matter to you? So today we're going to use metric measures. We're going to look at metric measures of length. But principally today we're going to work in metres, centimetres and millimetres. So let's look at those in a bit more detail. If we start with the metre, that's our central measure, a metre. That metre stick, picture, I can't fit it in my screen, picture that sort of metre ruler, that's our metre. And we know that that metre can be broken down into centimetres. So the prefix cent, C-E-N-T, that tells us 100 of something. We'd use that for century, 100 years in a century. We use it for a centurion, a Roman soldier, a Roman commander who commanded 100 troops. We use it kind of incorrectly, I think, for centipede. It's not, centipede don't have 100 legs. What else do we use it for? Cents in the dollar, in American currency. 100 cents in a dollar. Or in the euro, 100 cents in a euro. So there's 100 centimetres in a metre. Then, within each centimetre, we've got 10 millimetres. 10 millimetres in each centimetre. Or we can say there are 1,000 millimetres in a metre, because a millimetre has the prefix mil, M-I-L-L. That tells us 1,000 of something. We see that in milliliter, 1,000 millilitres in a litre. We see it in Well, do you know we see it in the word million? A million is actually 1,000 thousands. So we go 10,000s, 100,000, and then a million is 1,000 thousand. We see it in millennium. A millennium is 1,000 years. The French word for 1,000 is mille, M-I-L-L-E. So it's everywhere. These prefixes, these words, all linked together. So if we know that relationship between meters, centimeters, and millimeters, we can use multiplication or division by 100, by 10, or by 1,000 to convert between the three. We're going to start today by looking at some measurements and finding out how long each of these blue lines is. So the first line here, along the ruler, got a blue line. Now the blue line starts at 0. Blue line starts at the 0 and it ends here between the 5 and the 6. And I can see it ends on that line there. Now I can count the centimetres. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centimetres. Now I haven't quite got another full centimetre there. I'm going up to this point here. So I can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it tells me I've got 5.5 centimetres. I've had to go into decimal points there. I'm showing it in centimetres because it was between 5 and 6. Now if I want to show it in millimetres, centimetres, no, millimetres, I know that each centimetre is worth 10 millimetres. So this section here is worth 10. So I can count these in 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now I need to do these individual ones here. 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. So I know it's 5.5 centimetres or 55 millimetres. When you pause the video and have a go at this one here, just bear in mind, look, it doesn't start on the 0. It starts here on the 1 centimetre. Can you tell me what that is in centimetres and millimetres? Pause the video, have a go. Okay, I'm going to look through it now. So we're starting at 1 and it's finishing at 7. So I can use the ruler to help me and I can just count along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 centimetres. What about millimetres? Well, it's going to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 millimetres. So that's if we're using a measure to help us. But we've said prior to this we can use multiplication and division to help us convert, and we did this a little bit yesterday. In this one I want to convert 12 centimetres into millimetres. The missing value is that in millimetres. So to start with, I'm going to look at my helpful little visual here to work out what am I doing. I'm going from centimetres to millimetres. I'm going to find the arrow that's right. I'm going from centimetres to millimetres. I'm doing this. I'm multiplying by 10. I'm going from centimetres to millimetres, multiplying by 10. So centimetres, I'm going to put that in the top one of my place value chart, at the top row of my place value chart, 12. I've made sure I've got that right because I've got the 2 in the 1s, the 1 in the 10s. Multiplying by 10 then. If I'm going to multiply by 10, I like to think of multiplying division when I'm multiplying by 10 or 100. I like to remember which gets bigger. Multiplying by 10, the number gets bigger. If I was dividing by 10, the number would get smaller. But I know when I multiply, I'm going to multiply by a whole number, the number's going to get larger. So in this case, I'm multiplying by 10, the number will get larger. So if it's getting bigger, the numbers are going to go up towards the hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands column. Now because I'm multiplying by 10, I can see that there's 1 0 in the number 10. That's my clue that I'm going to move 1 column. If I was multiplying by 100, I'd move 2 columns. If I was multiplying by 1,000, I'd move 3 columns. Okay, so I'm multiplied by 10, so I'm moving 1 column. So this 1 is going to move up 1 column and go in here. The 2 is going to move up 1 column and go in here. Oh, the right pen. Now I need to finish my answer by filling in any zeros required. It's only going to be one placeholder 0 there. I don't need anything after the decimal point. So 12 centimetres is 120 millimetres. Let's try another one. Now I'm going from millimetres to centimetres. So I'm going to identify here, going from millimetres to centimetres. Going in this direction, from millimetres to centimetres, I'm going to divide by 10. Now divide by 10 tells me the number's going to get smaller. So I'm going to go in towards the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, into the little tiny parts because it's getting smaller. So starting with millimetres, 34, I'm dividing by 10. So my number's going to get smaller by 1 column. Move by 1 column. If I was divided by 100, it would be 2. If I was divided by 1,000, it would be 3. If I was divided by 10,000, it would be 4. But I'm dividing by 10, I'm moving 1 column. So 3 then is going to move 1 column, go then into the ones. The 4 is going to move 1 column and go then into the tenths. So 34 millimetres I started with. I've divided by 10 to get centimetres. I've got 34 to now 3.4. So 34 millimetres equals 3.4 centimetres. Now, some questions today will ask us about selecting the correct unit of measurement. This is an important skill, that we understand actually what these measures are worth and how they would be used. So just as a little break, I'd like you to pause the video here and just have a look at these 4 objects: a cricket bat, a penny, the distance between the Earth and the Moon, and a very, very, very tall building, and decide which is the best unit of measure that we could use to find the length of these objects. Pause the video and then have a go. So what did you say? Let's look at the cricket bat first. How long is a cricket bat? Half a person's worth? I think centimetres is the right measure there. If we measured it in millimetres, we'd be talking about many, many hundreds. If we did it in metres, we'd probably be saying 0 point something of a metre. But when we're working in centimetres there, we can see that's going to be maybe 60, 70 centimetres. That's a good unit of measure to use. Second one, we've got a penny. What are we going to measure that penny with? The length of it, or the width of it, or the circumference of it. The right unit is going to be millimetres, because millimetres will give us a value that's going to be somewhere in that region between 10 and 40, maybe somewhere in there. If I had it in centimetres, again I'd need to use a decimal. If I had it in metres, I'd use a really, really small decimal. So millimetres is probably the right one there, though we could use centimetres. Now what about distance from the Earth to the Moon? I think the right one there is going to be kilometres, because it's a really, really long distance. If I did it in millimetres, it's going to be in the billions or millions of billions. If I did it in centimetres, still it's going to be in the billions, maybe, or millions. Did it in metres, hundreds and hundreds of thousands. So kilometres is going to be about right. What about the tall building there? Should we measure that in kilometres? I think we'll probably end up with a decimal. It would be a bit strange, so I think it's probably best to use metres for that one. So let's see if we're ready to go and answer our questions then. We're going to convert these measurements into the blank one. So 13 centimetres, what's that in millimetres? What's 24 millimetres in centimetres? What's 129 centimetres in metres? And what's 302 millimetres in metres? Pause the video and have a go at answering those now. Okay, hopefully you've done all 4. Here come the answers. So just tick and fix your answers, see how you did. And what you can do now, once you've ticked all of them, is make a decision. Are you ready to go? Are you ready to grab the worksheet and files and work through them? Maybe that you feel confident to have a start on the bronze, and just make your way through that. If you're really confident, you want to go straight to the goal, remember you need to work from question 1 all the way through to 10 today, and questions 1 to 6 are for silver. If you're feeling that you'd like a little bit more guidance, I'd like to see some more conversions, stay with me and I'll be doing a few more now. Okay, let's do a couple more and see what we can do here. Okay, so now I'm going from meters to millimeters. Going from meters to millimeters. I'm just going to go and get that handy resource. Right, here it is. This is the one I want. And I advise you guys to use this today. It makes it much easier so we know what we're doing. So I'm going from meters to millimeters. So that means I need to multiply by 100 and then multiply by 10. Well, what I can do is put that together and know that I'm actually going to multiply by 1,000. So I'm going to multiply by 1,000. That means the number's going to get bigger by 1, 2, 3. 3 columns. So let's put that number in. It's 7.3. 7 in the ones, and then the 3 after the decimal point there in the tenths. Getting bigger by 3 columns. So the 7 is going to go 1, 2, 3 columns up. 7 multiplied by 1,000, yep, in the thousands column goes the 7. The 3, 1, 2, 3 columns up into the hundreds. Now I need to put in my placeholder zeros. 7,300. There's my answer. 7.3 meters is 7,300 meters. Alright, I'm going to do some more. So 132 millimeters in centimeters. So I'm going from millimeters to centimeters. I'm going to find it, divide by 10. So we divide by 10, getting smaller, 1 column. 132, let's put that in. Yep, okay, divide by 10, so smaller, 1 column. Smaller, 1 column. Alright, so the 1 is going to go in there. The 3 is going to go in there. And the 2 over into the tenth now after the decimal point. So 132 millimeters in centimeters is going to be 13.2. Right, let's do one more to finish. Got 3.9 meters and I want it in millimeters. Okay, so 3.9 meters, I want it in millimeters. Going from meters to millimeters again, and last time I did that, I had to do multiply by 100, multiply by 10, that was multiply by 1,000. Okay, so multiply by 1,000, number going to get bigger by 3, starting with 3.9. Here we go then. Let's move that 3, 1, 2, 3 columns over. And put the 3 in there. Let's move the 9, 1, 2, 3 columns over, and put the 9 in that column there. Nothing else to move, so just zeros to go in where necessary. That tells me that 3.9 meters is 3,900 millimeters. There we go, folks. Time to go to your task now. The answers and the questions are all over in files. And I'll see you next week for some more home learning